Our next guest this morning is James Sanders, who is MPL Law Firm General Counsel and also a SCORE mentor, and he's with us this morning to talk about business a bit. I've been reading the daily updates from James, and they've been fascinating to me, and I wanted to get him in here this morning. James, good morning. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. Another day and another exciting adventure. We'll see what comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Been an interesting time here during the quarantine and obviously social distancing and all that. And I was reading one of your posts that you put out, I think it was yesterday, and you talked about the acronym FEAR. And we used this the other week, and you said you have a choice of really two things. You're seeing a lot of this on the internet. Fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise, which I thought was really apropos for the time. But you know, you deal in talking to a lot of businesses, and of course we've talked to you before on the air about SCORE and what you've done there, and they of course help small businesses and entrepreneurs everywhere. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you're dealing with right now. For example, one of the things that Pennsylvania is offering right now is updated guidance for reopening of Pennsylvania. There's like a 7-page document out there, and tell us a little bit about some of the requirements for regions that are moving to yellow this coming Friday.
Yeah, sure, Gary. Well, what this is exposing right now with businesses is, it's a question of, what's the new normal and what does your disaster recovery look like in this situation? And, as I talked about with the two FEAR acronyms, you can either choose to put your head in the sand and do nothing, or you can choose to really look at your business and say, all right, what am I going to start to change and what am I going to look like once things start moving and things are recovering again? Mm-hmm. A lot of times when the recovery happens, you don't know it's happening. And by the time you're ready to make that change, everything's already moved on you. And you're trying to play catch up with it. I think kind of like what you just highlighted, businesses are going to figure out ways to reopen regardless of what the regulations are. It's just a natural thing. It's like water. Water's going to find the low point and flow to it. Well, businesses are going to figure out a way to make money as they move forward here. When you look at some of these regulations that are coming out from the state of Pennsylvania and even from the federal government, it's kind of like the weather in this region. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes because it's going to change. You saw
exactly.
You saw Governor Wolf last week. Well, he said that May 8th you were going to move certain counties to yellow, and hadn't said anything on construction projects. All of a sudden, 2 days later, you've got construction projects allowing to be open again. It's a fluid situation, and all I can tell you is go back to your basics of how you run your business. Follow the flow of your dollars through the business. Look at every single agreement, every single relationship you have, and think about it in the sense of what is this going to look like post-crisis. Now, word to the wise for those that are being allowed to reopen, I would highly recommend that you do follow as much as possible the regulations that are put in place. So, if you have employees that are sick, how do you handle that? How do you document that? What are you doing in terms of allowing them and accommodating them to work from home? When you're allowing customers to come into your facility, make sure you've got your safety mask. Make sure that you're following the precautions of, washing the hands and documenting it. If you've got work crews that are going into people's homes or to other businesses, do temperature logs. There's a lot of different ways, but whatever it is, implement a process so that in the event something does come and whipsaw around on you, you're able to prove that I followed a process to the best of my abilities, and this is the result.
One of the things that they're talking about in the Congress right now, and you lead right to that point, is corporate liability. And, a lot of people are saying, hey, for business to open and for business to flourish and our economy to get back on track, you want to get that corporate liability off a lot of these companies. And, of course, there are many Democrats who are saying, wait, not so fast. And so it sounds to me like what you're saying, James, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is make sure that your paper trail is even more graphic than normal in terms of saying what you're doing to be responsible in terms of opening business during this particular time of a pandemic.
I couldn't agree with you more. in my mind, as long as you're doing what is reasonable and what is logical, you're going to have a good foundation to prove that you were trying to the best of your abilities to conduct business within the bounds of whatever the regulations were. And that's true in any manner. And you think about it, when you're tracking your mileage as a business owner, what do? You put it in a notebook or put it into an app. If the IRS ever comes and checks on you, you've got that proof right there. It's not that the accuracy of the data is what they're really looking at. They're looking to see if you had a process in place.
I remember in school law some time ago, and there was a question asked, and it was about what would a reasonable person do? Does that apply here at all? What would a reasonable company do? And again, during a COVID-19 pandemic, it sounds like you're describing that pretty well.
I do think what would a reasonable person do in this situation, and that's where I think there's a big disconnect between the regulations that are coming out and what the underlying small business and organizations are doing on a day-to-day basis. People that have been in business for quite a long time, for the most part, are good citizens and good characters, and they're going to do what's reasonable. They're not going to do something that's going to blow up the system. So to put on regulations and then constantly change the regulations, you're really muddying the water. So in my mind, if when I'm running a business and when I'm leading an organization, I'm trying to say, okay, what's the next right thing to do? Next step, I'm going to check in with my mentors and my professional advisors and sniff test what the decision is that I'm making, and then ultimately I'm going to make and implement that decision. And